and his intercession closes, there is nothing to stay the wrath of Yahweh, and it breaks with fury upon this shelterless head of the guilty sinner, who has slighted salvation and hated reproof. In that fearful time, after the close of Yeshua's mediation, the saints were living in the sight of a holy God without an intercessor. Every case was decided, every jewel numbered. Yeshua tarried a moment in the outer apartment of the heavenly sanctuary, and the sins which had been confessed while he was in the most holy place were placed upon Satan, the originator of sin, who must suffer their punishment. Then I saw Yeshua lay off his priestly attire and clothe himself with his most kingly robes. Upon his head were many crowns, a crown within a crown. Surrounded by the angelic host, he left heaven. The plagues were falling upon the inhabitants of the earth. Some were denouncing Yahweh and cursing him. Others rushed to the people of God and begged to be taught how they might escape his judgments. But the saints had nothing for them. The last tear for sinners had been shed, the last agonizing prayer offered, the last burden borne, the last warning given. The sweet voice of mercy was no more to invite them. When the saints in all heaven were interested for their salvation, they had not interest for themselves. Life and death had been set before them. Many desired life but made no effort to obtain it. They did not choose life, and now there was no atoning blood to cleanse the guilty, no compassionate Savior to plead for them and cry, "Spare them, spare the sinner a little longer." All heaven had united with Yeshua as they heard the fearful words, "It is done. It is finished." The plan of salvation had been accomplished, but few had chosen to accept it. And as mercy's sweet voice died away, fear and horror seized the wicked. With terrible distinctness, they heard the words, "Too late, too late." Those who had not prized Yahweh's word were hurried to and fro, wandering from sea to sea and from north to east to seek the word of the Lord. Said the angel, "They shall not find it. There is a famine in the land, not a famine of bread nor a thirst for water, but for hearing the words of the Lord." What would they not give for one word of approval from Yahweh? But no, they must hunger and thirst on. Day after day have they slighted salvation, prizing earthly riches and earthly pleasure higher than any heavenly treasure or inducement. They have rejected Yeshua and despised his saints. The filthy must remain filthy still. Many of the wicked were greatly enraged as they suffered the effects of the plagues. It was a scene of fearful agony. Parents were bitterly reproaching their children, and children their parents. Brothers their sisters, and sisters their brothers. Loud wailing cries were heard in every direction. "It was you who kept me from receiving the truth which would have saved me from this awful hour." The people turned upon their ministers with bitter hate and reproached them, saying, "You have not warned us. You told us that all the world was to be converted, and cried, 'Peace, peace,' to quiet every fear that was aroused. You have not told us of this hour, and those who warned us of it you declared to be fanatics and evil men who would ruin us. But I saw the ministers did not escape the wrath of Yahweh. Their suffering was tenfold greater than that of their people. I saw the saints leaving the cities and villages and associating together in companies and living in the most solitary places. Angels provided them food and water, while the wicked were suffering from hunger and thirst. Then I saw the leading men of the earth consulting together, and Satan and his angels busy around them. I saw a writing, copies of which were scattered in different parts of the land, giving orders that unless the saints should yield their peculiar faith, the people were at liberty after a certain time to put them to death. But in this hour of trial the saints were calm and composed, trusting in Yahweh and leaning upon his promise that a way of escape would be made for them. In some places, before the time for the decree to be executed, the wicked rushed upon the saints to slay them. But angels in the form of men of war fought for them. Satan wished to have the privilege of destroying the saints of the Most High, but Yeshua bade his angels watch over them. Yahweh would be honored by making a covenant with those who had kept his law in the sight of the heathen round about them. And Yeshua would be honored by translating without their seeing death the faithful, waiting ones who had so long expected him. Soon I saw the saints suffering great mental anguish. They seemed to be surrounded by the wicked inhabitants of the earth. Every appearance was against them. Some began to fear that Yahweh had at last left them to perish by the hand of the wicked. But if their eyes could have been opened, they would have seen themselves surrounded by angels of the Most High. Next came the multitude of the angry wicked, and next a mass of evil angels, hurrying upon the wicked to slay the saints. But before they could approach Yahweh's people, the wicked must first pass this company of mighty holy angels. This was impossible. The angels of the Most High were causing them to recede, and also causing the evil angels who were pressing around them to fall back. It was an hour of fearful, terrible agony to the saints. Day and night they cried unto Yahweh for deliverance. To outward appearance there was no possibility of their escape. The wicked had already begun to triumph, crying out, "Why doesn't your God deliver you out of our hands? Why don't you go up and save your lives?" But the saints heeded them not. Like Jacob, they were wrestling with God. The angels longed to deliver them, but they must wait a little longer. The people of Yahweh must drink of the cup and be baptized with the baptism. The angels, faithful to their trust, continued their watch. Yahweh would not suffer his name to be reproached among the heathen. The time had nearly come when he was to manifest his mighty power and gloriously deliver his saints for his name's glory. He would deliver every one of those who had patiently waited for him, and those whose names were written in the book. I was pointed back to faithful Noah when the rain descended and the flood came. Noah and his family had entered the ark, and God had shut them in. Noah had faithfully warned the inhabitants of the antediluvian world while they had mocked and derided him. And as the waters descended upon the earth, and one after another was drowning, they beheld that ark of which they had made so much sport, riding safely upon the waters, preserving the faithful Noah and his family. So too I saw the people of Yahweh, who had faithfully warned the world of his coming wrath, would be delivered. Yahweh would not suffer the wicked to destroy those who were expecting translation, and who would not bow to the decree of the beast or receive his mark. I saw that if the wicked were permitted to slay the saints, Satan and all his evil host and all who hate God would be gratified. And oh, what triumph it would be for his satanic majesty to have power in a last closing struggle over those who had so long waited to behold him whom they loved. Those who have mocked at the idea of the saints going up will witness the care of Yahweh for his people and behold their glorious deliverance. As the saints left the cities and villages, they were pursued by the wicked who sought to slay them, but the swords that were raised to kill Yahweh's people broke and fell as powerless as straw. Angels of God shielded the saints,